Hello and welcome to
Okay,
Ananke's Women in
yes.
Literature Festival 2025. I'm always happy to have fellow publishers here and my favorite duo based in Lahore, my fellow publishers and friends in full transparency. I'm delighted to have here with me Mina Malik and Hassan Tahir. Mina and Hassan are the founders of the People Press. They are also publishers of Risala magazine, a bilingual magazine focusing on children and youth. They have really set a new standard in terms of publications when it comes to opening up avenues of creativity in print, as well as fostering inclusive spaces for literary communities and other cultural related activities. Mina and Hassan, thank you for being here with us today.
Well, thank you
Thank
for
you for
having
having
us.
us there. It's always so wonderful when Ananke comes to town, as it were. And it's such a wonderful platform with so many important conversations. It's always a delight.
Thank you. Hopefully, one day we will have Ananke and the festival in person when we start making money. But till then, we're in this together online. But that's exactly what I want to talk about today. Mina, Hassan, both of you did something which totally goes against the grain. When everybody is now looking towards the digital realm, we're looking towards PDFs, we're looking towards Instagram based carousel, we're looking towards internet sites, e publications. Here you are, the both of you came up and said, we're doing a publication, and guess what? It's going to be in print. Tell me
Yeah,
about
that's a
it.
question that I get.
Go for it.
So I feel like the story of Risala I really love because
Yeah.
Hassan and I grew up reading magazines and reading a lot, as we all did. And I have four kids, and I would often grouse to Hassan, "Okay, oh, there should be more fun stuff for them to read." And, we both work with young people with writing and workshopping and teaching them. And they're always writing stories about, Sandy did this and Adam did that, which is, of course, because the content that they consume is very Western. So we were like, kuch hona chahiye, and there should be something for kids which is like local and fun to read, and it's not preachy and it's not boring, but it's something that for the modern kid. And then we were like, well, be the change you want to see. And we were like, we should just do it. And then we did.
And you most
So,
certainly did.
and
And
one thing that
also, putting it in print became such a conscious choice for us. There were no two ways about it. We knew we wanted
Mm.
it to be in print because the age group that we were targeting, they're already getting a lot of screen time. And we didn't want to add that one more thing where we want them to engage with a publication and that to be digital as well. And there's something about having, something about the tactility of a magazine that just doesn't go away. Perhaps we're a bit, nostalgic about it, but we have seen the way children have interacted with it. And I think for many reasons, especially if we're looking at the age group of Risala, print is here to stay for, the children color it. Children who can't read, they're younger, like for example, younger siblings of our target audience, they end up coloring in it, or we have fun games that the entire family gets together and plays. And that's just something that you can't have with a screen. And so that was a very conscious choice on our part.
Yeah.
It's
And,
so
and if you think
interesting.
about
Go
it,
ahead.
you can take it to school in your backpack, and you can take it with you to Nani's
Mm.
house. You can lend it to your cousin who can take
Yeah.
it and read it on the part, and you can fold it. You can pull out a poster and put it on your wall. So it becomes an artifact that you're engaging with on so many different levels. And the way that we design Risala is on really sort of sturdy paper, and it's a
Yeah.
substantial publication in itself. So it's also, the content is really ageless. So we thought of it like, I was thinking about the Reader's Digests that my Nani Nana had because they had a subscription. And then when they kind of downsized their house, we inherited like 20 years worth of Reader's Digests. And as a
Um,
10, 11 year old, I would just sit and read those Reader's Digests, which were well made. And a lot of the stories I felt were like, my first Ray Bradbury short story came out of Reader's Digest.
yeah.
A Romeo and Juliet love affair. I still remember it. So we were thinking of Risala like that. It's something you can keep and you can have on your shelf. And then, 2 mahine baad, a year later, somebody else picks it up and is like, oh, what's this? And another part of Risala that we really wanted, because we thought a lot about the experience of interacting with, again, a magazine, is that if you order it from us, for example, directly, we use Pakistan Post to send it. So the
Right.
postman brings it, the dakia brings it, you have an envelope with the stamp and your name on it, and that adds another level of interaction and connection to the magazine. So, it's all kind of coming in from lots of different directions.
And
So there are
also, one
two
of
themes
the
here.
reasons why we founded Risala, not that wait,
No, go on,
I
Hassan.
think
Go
there's a
on,
lag.
Hassan. No, go on,
Okay.
Hassan.
Yes. What was I saying? One of the reasons why we founded Risala was not just to provide content for younger readers, but also to publish their work. And I think regardless of how wide the digital sphere is, seeing your work in print holds a very different value for anyone of any age. And so and we've seen it. We've seen our readers who get published, their parents take pictures of the child with the Risala, with their poem in it or their short story, and then they send them to us. Oh, XYZ has been so excited. They've been going around showing it to everyone. And I think that's just something that you cannot replicate with digital. Maybe in the future there are technologies that do it, but right now I think the value that you're seeing your name in print has, that's one of the reasons why we continued to keep it in print.
So both of you have touched upon two themes. One is the longevity of the written word, and the other one is preserving a way of life. Now, the longevity of it is something that I want to unpack here with you. I remember when Amazon set up their self-publishing element, and there's nothing wrong with self-publishing. I am a self-published author myself, but there were two impacts that happened. One, it democratized the whole process of publishing. It was no longer a gatekeeping thing, right? And you see the success that Amazon authors have had. That's why indie publishing sort of, mushroomed as well. But on the other hand, there was this element of like, oh, well, now we have ebooks and therefore print is going to die. But that hasn't happened. And then even during COVID, when a lot of print magazines shut down in Pakistan, everybody was like, well, that's the end of print magazines. But then here you are, the two of you, and it's exactly what you said, that print is here to stay. Why do you think that Pakistan or even globally, print still holds so much value? And I'm going to get to the second part, which is the way of life, which is what you're doing. You're inculcating something in children to value the impact of the written word through something physical, something tangible, and the dakya as well. So let's go with the first one thing. Like, why do you think print is pretty much here to stay? What is it about print that technology has just been unable to eradicate it completely?
I feel like one aspect of this, and this is something I thought about often during COVID because we were online so much, is that we talk a lot about digital literacy,
That's
and
right.
Everybody has a phone, everybody has a data package, things like that. But we are still a nation that is not very technologically advanced. Like having a phone is not, I don't think, is the kind of digital literacy that we envision when we think about reading online, for example.
That's right.
And consumers are not using their phones to read books online or magazines, even the average consumer, I would say. They're doing it to, WhatsApp and look at YouTube and maybe watch dramas and call people and do that sort of thing. So I feel like with reading, and when we think about reading as, a habit, as a hobby, as something you also do to study even, you're not doing it online. I don't think that Pakistani readers are reading online.
No, that's very true.
I think it's
And we
also a
see that
generational thing,
in
perhaps.
Anarkali as well. The Anarkali book market is saying, which is why it just makes you think that what is it that print is here to stay? Hassan, you were saying?
I think it's also a generational thing as well, especially I'm reminded of this meme which it's about millennials. Oh, this is a computer task. This is a big screen task when you have to do things. And I think our generation and generations older than us, we have this connection with print that a book has to be read when it's a physical copy, right? But I see that around me with younger readers as well, that they're studying online, they're studying on their screens, but when it comes to literature, entertainment, that's still in physical copies. And I think that's something that just goes to speak to, the sensorial experience of reading, because we're
Hmm.
so connected online all the time. And when you want to, um, we're at a stage in time where, people think that when you see something on the big screen on your TV, that's not screen time anymore, because you're no longer
Yeah.
glued to the
Yeah.
screen the way you are with your phone or with your iPad. And I think that's what books are doing as well. When you want to read something for pleasure, you don't want to do it on the device that you're scrolling or doom scrolling on, or the devices that you're using to study in school. And that's one of the reasons why I think. And apart from that, there's a huge, for a country like Pakistan, we're what now, 230 million people? Not
Yeah.
everybody
250.
even
Huh?
has access to the sort of resources, digital resources to even study. A lot of studying is being
Yeah.
done offline as
Very
well. And
true.
I think
Absolutely.
so across the country, I think that's one of the reasons why perhaps print won't die here for a long time.
It's the most
Absolutely.
low-tech solution,
Mhm.
and we still need the most low-tech solution. In spite of all the advancements we're trying to make,
Sure.
low-tech is the most egalitarian way to do it. So print, in a way, is actually not innovate. It's the most egalitarian form of knowledge dissemination is to have it in print. And it's really interesting that two of my kids at the moment are avid readers. So I
Well
know.
done. This is how parenting is done, folks.
Oh my God, it just happened organically. The bug bit them and really just answered all my, many prayers. I'm like, please. But it's interesting because my 14-year-old who is hooked on the fantasy series, the new book was coming out. And I said, do you want to just read it on Kindle so that you can read it and then you can get the physical copy later whenever you can. She's
Good,
like,
good.
no, I'm going to wait till I can have the book in
Yeah.
hand. She's like, I don't want to read it on my Kindle. Or my son who's reading his manga, he's like, I don't want to read it on the Kindle. I'm going to read it when I have it in my hand. And I was like,
Oh,
we
that's
still, and
really
he's
And I would like to
fascinating.
add something that, both of you
Sure.
have
kids
mentioned.
with
So
technology.
yeah,
Sure.
Mina, you were just talking about how egalitarian it is, and then Meher, you brought up Anarkali Book Bazaar, and I think that is also the value. It's the same thing that we have with Risala, that you can pass it on. A lot of times, the argument is that, oh, ebooks are available, but they also cost, certain amount of
Yeah.
dollars. Maybe not as expensive as a physical copy, but a lot of times you need a certain account, such as a Kindle account, which is, and a Kindle in Pakistan doesn't really work. At least I tried, and it doesn't have that many
No.
books.
Yeah.
So you need a UK account, a US account. So it's not that accessible,
Mm.
perhaps for a certain
Very true.
percentage of the population. But and then we have all of these websites that continue archiving a lot of ebooks, and then you can just download them, but they keep disappearing as well. And so print, it's there. You can just hand your copy to someone, and once you're done with it, or you can give it to an old book bazaar, and then somebody else will find it.
Yeah.
See, now you've just picked up on the second theme that I wanted to explore with you. And I mean, that's what you said. It's a very egalitarian way of experiencing something. And Hassan, what you've just said about the book bazaar thing, which I think book bazaar, people think is a very South Asian concept. It's romanticized on Instagram. But then I think, well, you have book bazaars everywhere. I mean, you just have to go to, cancer research or Barnaby's in London on High Street, and you'll see books are there, or they have stalls outside with books. And I'm just thinking, this concept is pretty much, it's everywhere, but it's a way of life, right? Going back to what Mina, you had said, that you send your Rasada magazine out through the post, and the post is so important. People think that Pakistan Post is defunct, it's not functional, but no, it reaches out to those areas where, let's say, other courier companies may turn around and say, well, we don't really go there, sorry, it's for whatever reasons that they have. But it's primarily, it's a way of life as well. I mean, it's what you said, that a slower way is necessary now. Too much development is taking too fast. And if anything, when I see it, it's widening the gap between the haves and the have-nots. For all this talk about bridging the digital divide and the gender divide and putting people together, I do feel at times that social media has sort of exacerbated these existing gaps that exist, were there in physical.
Mhm.
And so a slower way of living is required, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's how I feel about it. I mean, how do you feel about it?
You
Oh,
know, that's
definitely. We're all for the slow way of life.
it's
Yeah.
true, that's the ideal. And I think that now that we're talking about, a different envisioning a slower life, and I don't think that it's necessarily nostalgia, but it's a
Oh,
recognition that there were aspects to doing things slower that worked and that
yeah.
were
Yeah.
helpful and nurturing. And Hassan and I have been talking about this of late. In fact, H, why don't you expand on this?
I
It's
came
but
across this
yeah.
Instagram post, which just, had everything that we were talking about consolidated into one post. And we're just like, okay, we're not the only ones who think about it this way.
Yeah.
And somebody had compared the age of the Romantics and what was
Hmm.
happening in the post-industrialization era and how people really wanted to, be in commune with nature and they wanted to take things slower. And how that the way the world is right now, it requires a new romantic era where we
Absolutely.
do take things slowly. And I think
Absolutely.
it's very important to point out over here, as Mina also said, that it's not necessarily nostalgia, because I think that is where, that's the pitfall of it, because we're not envisioning a way like you don't want to be a Luddite, right? You don't want us to stop using technology,
No,
but
no, of
just
course
a
not.
more conscious way of living, a more conscious way of using the technology, disconnecting when you need to. And I think that is why when it comes to print, we are so keen on it, because that is just one of the ways where you you disconnect from the screens around you, from the, all the noise in the world around you, and you are just
That's
able to
right.
engross yourself in your world. And I mean, not to say that if you have an ebook, that's a bad thing. And that's just
No, of
about
course not.
whether you're consuming literature or not. But even that is conscious, right? If you're reading on an e-reader, it is meant to mimic paper. It is meant to kind of give you
That's
a
right.
slower way of reading. Um, so yeah, but I
And I
do.
think it dovetails really beautifully with this idea when people, and Meher, I'm sure you hear it as well, because you are also a print woman, is that people say that, oh, it's really romantic to say, ki, oh, har cheez print, you should get on to print. And it's
Yeah.
something almost, you're being old fashioned by saying that, well, no, it's in print and we don't have an online version or we don't have an ebook. It's kind of quaint. But I think that dovetails beautifully with this idea of a new romanticism. That, yeah, maybe it is a romantic idea, but then, yeah,
Yeah.
as a philosophy, yes, we want it. And at the
Yeah.
press, this is something that we talk about a lot at the People Press, is that we want to make books which are beautifully done. So you
Mm.
keep it for a long time and it's beautiful and it's a pleasure to interact with it, because the aesthetic pleasure and also the intellectual pleasure of a print publication are both, they go hand in hand for us. So yeah, absolutely, bring on all the
Even just
romance.
the
Yeah.
tactility of it, right? Because one of the most important things that we do with Risala and the other publications is to check the feel of the paper,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because that is so important. And these are little things that we didn't realize that is how we were selecting books as readers before we started the press. These are little things that we, you experiment with different paper types and you understand, that's why a coffee table book makes
Yeah.
me feel this way, and that's why this
Yes.
scene is making me feel this way. There's so much that
Yeah.
goes into the process of publishing that is so conscious that I think readers don't necessarily understand why they're drawn to a certain type of book for a certain type of
That's right.
project or a certain type of theme. And that is what we do at the press. And we want to curate that reading experience for you
Yeah.
whenever you pick a publication that we published.
Absolutely. Now, Mina, Hassan, both of you have used two specific words here. One is conscious, and the other one is interaction. And I think this is absolutely fantastic because for a country like Pakistan, and I've long argued about this, and I'm certain people have disagreed with me, I feel that the Western model of publishing and book selling cannot work in the context of Pakistan because the economics of it, people in the West have more buying power than we do. I know as a mother myself, I've been in positions where I've been thinking, should I buy a book or should I buy two chickens which are going to last me for a week? Realistically
Yeah,
speaking, that's when it comes.
exactly.
It's the
Yeah.
economics of it, right? So one is the conscious consumerism thing. And the other thing is the interaction, the actual interaction. Books traditionally have always been a community driven thing. Now, as publishers, you know this, is that even when you're interacting with whether it's children submitting, or young adults or young people submitting their work to you, or even the fantastic community-led conversations you've had at the People Press. It's all been about engaging people, fostering this inclusive space, fostering this sort of like, exchange of ideas and thoughts to sort of open up the market. For far too long in Pakistan has been sort of like, publishing was never really taken seriously. It was just seen as like, if you have nothing else to do, then you do this. Or a bookseller was never taken seriously. So the idea of interaction and conscious consumerism, do you feel that this is where you see a new stage in Pakistani publishing coming about?
Such a good question.
Like, I know I see it, right?
The
I
question,
love.
I think what we can answer perhaps is in terms of the Pakistani publishing industry in English, because
Yeah.
when it comes to publishing in other languages, I think that
Aha.
is a completely different landscape. But very good question. Mina,
See, the
why
way
don't you
I see it,
start?
for example, I think conscious consumerism has to come about in publishing because there was very little value associated with books, right? And that's why also the piracy market exists, because people are thinking, why would I spend 2,000 rupees on a book when I can pick up a 50 rupees pirated copy of Dracula? Okay. But I
Yes. So
think
I think also
that you need to add that value, that when you're buying a book, you're investing in your child, you're investing in your household, you are investing in something that will have longevity. So that kind of conscious consumerism still has to be generated around publishing and books, right? And then the interaction element, I think far too long in many areas of especially in the arts and culture, you have people working in silos. हम अपना करेंगे काम, आप अपना काम
Yeah.
करो. And there's this fear of like what the other person will say if they interact with you. And it's like, well, actually, we're all facing the same barriers. I mean, you two have the People Press, I have Zuka Books, but ultimately we're facing the same issues when it comes to paper, electricity, stocking, budgeting. Exactly.
I think you've hit upon a very good point when you talk when you mentioned the engagement activities that we've led at the press.
Yeah.
Because the Western model, I think one of the reasons why people are so used to perhaps piracy is because you don't really relate a book to an author, apart from the economic factors.
Sure.
When you have Pakistani authors, when they're doing events such as the ones that we do at the press, I think that there's more of an interaction with the person. When there's recognizability, this knowability, perhaps when you're about to pirate somebody's book whose talk you attended, you will think twice. And maybe you'll ask somebody to, lend you their, so that you can borrow their copy, or maybe you'll, find another way that is not piracy. And I think, just in terms of creating greater interest in literature, especially local literature, these events are so important because that's where the audiences are able to connect with the author, with the poet. They're able to ask questions. A lot of times when it comes to the Western publishing world, the budgets are huge. So even if the authors are in America or the UK, you are able to, especially since COVID, you are able to attend their talks online. You are able to listen to them speak online because their digital marketing budgets are also, they're very different than ours. But over here, I think it's important that the publishers, and this is something that we try to do, whether we're publishing somebody's book or not. A couple of the conversations that we've had at the press were not with people whose books we publish. We just wanted them to come and have a chat with their audience, with their actual readers. And I think that is very important, and that is something that publishers in Pakistan should be doing more of, and publishers are doing on their own. It's just that I think audiences should show up. It's a two-way street, right? And I think we're a smaller industry that's slowly growing, and it is happening. So I don't think I'm pessimistic about it, but I think it is something that started, but that's something that should be continued. There is value in it, and it should be part of everybody's marketing budget.
Absolutely. I also feel like this is, and I agree with Hassan that this is a process. Now we're all kind of in it and pulling along and pulling each other along together. But I also feel like something that I hope changes in readers and who are our customer also. And I think it's also a question of value and the perception of value. So we do have people who think that Risala, for example, is overpriced, which is fair. Like, it's not in your budget, it's not in your budget. That's okay. But there are people who will not pick up Risala, but then eat out. Or like I see, Hassan's book stack. Now the Han Kang book is upwards of 3,000 rupees at the moment. And it has sold really well. People
Yeah,
have bought it.
people
People
have
bought
bought it.
it. I bought it.
Mm.
The last word shipments come in and they sell out in days. People bought it, right? So I feel like there is a kind of odd, maybe it's because like ghar ki murgi dal barabar sort of thing, where
Yeah,
it's like, and I've heard people at like panels and conferences and LitFests and thing be quite critical about local writing, and then
yeah,
they'll buy pirated version because they don't really care so much. Like Hassan is saying, they don't feel connected to local writers, which is a
yeah.
real pity, because please do that. Like, this is how we
No, I
support each
agree.
other. So, if you find value in local writing, then you'll buy local writing. That will enable your publisher to put out beautiful books for you, and to put out good quality products for you, and to put out wonderful stories and poetry and things for you to read. And then it's a good cycle that then continues. So this is something that I hope that with all of the outreach work and the workshopping and the salons and the lectures and all of these conversations that we're having, is that readers give give our local writers more
A
attention and more.
chance. Absolutely. And I think that's something
Compared to
that will
the,
become in
so
part
like
of
I
the
think readers.
conscious and the interaction element, that you've got to sort of engage with people like, okay, you don't like what's coming out. What, you don't like all of it? And what is it that you don't like? And I do feel that this isn't a conversation that has to take place with consumers as well. That, I think books are the easiest thing for people to target and say, okay, oh, this isn't good enough. And it's like, well, all right, if it's not good enough, then, that's your opinion. But we're trying. What have you done? Apart from, and where's your criticism coming from? If you're comparing it to, let's say, like, a Nobel Prize winner, well, that's a bit unfair, because the Nobel Prize winner will always have, a whole machinery, and after decades of experience. And here we are, the publishing industry is just about picked up in the last, I think, since well, during COVID. This is like a new renaissance that's building up. So I think maybe this is something that you guys have given me food for thought, where I think we need to engage with the audience about this. We're
Yeah,
heading
because
towards the
I
last
should,
6 minutes. So, anything you guys would like to say? Look how precise I am. 6 minutes.
I
wow,
think
your accounts must be impeccable.
I
I think
wish. Let's
one
go
thing that
there.
I'd like to add is that it's also important for people to continue, because if we're saying that good writing isn't coming out, if that's what the consumer is saying, and let's just say the consumer is right, I think then it's
Okay.
also
Yeah.
on people who are in charge of producing that writing to continue mentoring younger writers that and
Agreed.
younger people who want to write, or people of any age who want to write. And that is something that, not to toot our own horn, but that's something that we're very passionate about at the press. We've already done one round of workshops called Ampersand, which was a craft workshop focused on poetry and prose for public university and public college students. And the work that they produced was brilliant. There
I've
was
seen it.
such
It
a
really was. And well
diversity of
done, you
voices.
guys.
Thank
Well
you.
done, you guys.
And we're just going to start the second round of Ampersand later this year for two completely different genres. And I think there are so many other writers who are doing writing workshops. People are starting to connect with the writing community. So the writing and reading community, they have to go in hand in hand, right? And eventually, I think it'll get to a stage where we're producing not just quality work, but quality work in quantity. And
Yeah,
that people
that's
will
the
hopefully flock to
dream.
buy. That is the
Yeah.
dream. But I think, as you said, that this is a second or a new renaissance of the publishing industry.
Yeah.
That also means that it is a new renaissance of writing in English in Pakistan.
Yes.
And
Buka has
hopefully,
such a diverse portfolio. Safina Ilahi at Reverie has put out so many interesting new voices.
Absolutely.
It's a really exciting and thrilling time to be
It
doing
really
this.
is. It really is. And I feel like, Mina, you sort of like, there's a recognition as well. Ki, "Acha, you're doing this, we're doing that." And I said this before, that I don't feel there's a competition, but rather it's interesting to see that, oh, you're opening up avenues in this way, and oh, this is what you're doing creatively. That's interesting. That's a good way of looking at it. And so I do feel ultimately we are facing the same battles. And I mean, what is the future for the People Press? Do you think you'll ever get into book publishing? I know you're doing Risala. I know you're doing community-led work, which is incredible. I'm waiting for the people and poetry. Yes. Do you think you'll come out?
We're looking at poetry, yes. So we have
Okay.
2 poetry manuscripts which are forthcoming this year, inshallah.
Amazing.
So yes, at the press, these are the things we're looking at, kind of like the slightly more marginalized aspects
Yeah.
of publishing, because with fiction and graphic novels, people are in very good hands. With the academic work, you have folio.
Absolutely.
So there are people, all of you guys are doing excellent work. So we felt like and again, it dovetails with our interests. I'm a poet, so I'm like, poetry. So between young people and kids and poetry, and also hopefully art. So those are the kind of.
And I think another thing that we forgot to mention when we're talking about, just to wrap up on that note from my end,
Go for it.
when we're talking about community engagement, one thing that we're doing at the press, even if we're not publishing somebody's book, we provide editorial consultations on people's manuscripts.
Yes.
Excellent.
And now we've also started providing design consultation, because as Mina said earlier, I think design is people often, don't give it as much importance when it comes to books, but design is such a crucial part of your reader experience. And that is something that we're doing as well. So, we saw that everybody else was, as you said, you see what somebody else is doing, and then you look at what your passion is. And this was design, poetry, art. Those are our passions. And hopefully, they'll add some value to the publishing industry in Pakistan.
They most certainly do.
Our powers combined.
No, they most certainly do.
Nobody is right now, at least, is making any big money out of publishing in Pakistan. So since
I've been very honest about it. I'm not making any money. I'm just happy to cover my costs, and I'm like, wait.
We can just hope. That's why we should all help each other, because
truly
we're all in it because we're
project.
truly passionate about it.
And truly, why else would we be doing this? No, thank you for all that you do. I am truly grateful, and you've always been extremely inviting to everyone. And I wish you all the very best. And if any way, we can help, you know where to find me. Thank you so much, guys. We're all at the end of our session. Anything else you'd like to add? We have 2 minutes.
Follow us on Instagram. I don't know.
Yes. Yes. People, we will be sharing the People Press and Risala Press Instagram handles underneath this video, so you can follow them. Please feel free to drop Mina, Hassan a message. They're lovely people, and they will respond to you. Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mehr. Nafis.